Hey, Froggy friends, Kirostyle here. Happy holidays! Thank you so much for joining me here on stream. Welcome in, everyone. Sai, congratulations on being first. Kieran, thanks for stopping by. Daximus, hello, hello. Ash, welcome to the stream. And Cole, it's good to see you. Hope you guys are all doing well today. Merry Christmas Eve for those of you on this side of the world, or Merry Christmas early morning to those of you on the other side of the world. Thank you so much for coming to the stream or watching the video. I know this is kind of a weird time of day to be doing this video because a lot of people are busy with their families and such during Christmas time, which is completely understandable, but I don't have very much time to try to squeeze in this stream before the end of the year, and I'd rather do it December before January. The reason being, you might have heard from my social media or from some of our other videos or collab streams, but I'm going on vacation in a couple days. On December 26th, I am going on vacation out of country. I am visiting Japan with Kieran and Lork. I'm very excited. It'll be a fun time. We'll be there for approximately 10 days, and we have a lot of things planned. I'll talk about all those things when we get back from the trip. There'll obviously be a fun recap stream once we get back in January. Once I get back in January, I might also take a few extra days of no streaming just to catch up on things before we get back into streams. So there will be a little bit of a delay between this video and the next piece of content. Therefore, I want to get this done before we left. Otherwise, I would do it in January, and I feel like by then it would have lost a little bit of its impact. But I think this is a good way to kind of end off our year, like we do usually, going over the games we played on stream and kind of debriefing our thoughts, ranking them a little bit, talking a little bit about the year. As you can see, I have here the tier list from all the games we've done thus far. So this is as of the end of 2024. We're going to be adding our 2025 games to here. And this is like my opinion of the games, how the games played to me, as well as how the streams go would affect a little bit about my perception of the game as well. Of course, people are free to have their own opinions about games, and your opinion does not necessarily need to be the same as mine. So if I really like a game that you dislike, or if you really love a game and I dislike it, that's totally fine. And I feel like I have to say that every time because I always get people angry at me for not agreeing with them about their opinion about a game, which is a little silly because this whole thing is subjective. That's the point, right? Everyone could go make their own tier list of their own favorite games, and that's totally fine. But this is my tier list, and this is what I feel about this. So, yeah. So, I know, again, Christmas Eve afternoon. It's going to be a little quiet. Not too many people around. A lot of people are busy. But we're going to go ahead and do this anyways, because otherwise, I won't have time. Now, even though this is the last YouTube video of my channel for 2025, it's probably not going to be the last stream. I'm probably going to squeeze in, or I want to squeeze in, at least one more Octopath Traveler 0 stream between now and when I leave on my trip. Although, if I'm posting on YouTube, I'll probably post that one first for continuity's sake, because I do want to finish our current story arc before we take off and go on vacation. But in advance, Happy New Year, if you're watching this. Hi Iris, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. So, since we have more and more games now, the tier list is getting larger and larger, so I zoomed out a little bit more, so hopefully you can still see the games. Now, the games that we played this year are here at the bottom. Let's quickly do a roll call over these games to remind ourselves of what we played this year on stream. And this does not count games that I started before 2025. Like, for example, we started Persona 3 Reloaded in 2024, and then we didn't finish it. We had to put it on hold. So I finished it in 2025, and then we also did episode Ivalice, which is the DLC at the end. That is not on here because we already ranked this from last year. So Persona 3, right here. So this is only the new things we're adding, but some of the rankings for previous things might change depending on, time passing, etc. So for this year, in alphabetical order, we have Blueprints, Castle Crashers, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Digimon Story Time Stranger, Dispatch, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, Final Fantasy Tactics The Ivalice Chronicles, Fire Emblem 7 The Blazing Blade, Frog Detective 3, Hades 2, Lost Soul Aside, Khemia, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, Monster Prom 3 Monster Roadtrip, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, Ninja Gaiden 4 No, I'm Not a Human, No Sleep for Kaname Date from the Somnium Files. You guys can't see it here, but next to it over on the side is Octopath Traveler 0. It's cut off because of my VTuber model. Okami HD Remastered, Peak, Pit People, Pokemon Legends ZA, REPO, SEDAP, Shadow Hearts, Shadow Hearts 2 Covenant, Silent Hill F, Split Fiction, Street Fighter 6, Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Xillia, The 100 Line Last Defense Academy, Tock A Tale for Two, Trails in the Sky First Chapter, Umineko Golden Fantasia, and Unpacking. That should be a total of, I think, 51 games that we've done this year, which it doesn't look like that much when you look at it from like lined up like this, but it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. Hey Luke, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. So as per before, we'll keep our rankings. We have S rank, which is like the best of the best. We have A+, A, and A-, B+, B, B-, C. We have demo only. This is a tier for games where I only play the demo and I didn't feel like I wanted to keep playing them. I have a special tier, which is like the tier for games that I think are kind of special and need like their own type of ranking because they're not really traditional games in the sense of being a traditional game. And then we have party games, which are like games that are fun based on playing them with other people. They're meant to be played with other people, therefore your experience might change. So I think it's easier if we start these tier lists by, maybe I'll start with like the best ones we did this year and then the worst ones, because all the ones in between are a little bit harder to rank for me. So, Expedition 33. Everyone's talking about this game. It won so many awards at the Game Awards, which again, you know, the Game Awards, it's a biased competition, right? You're not supposed to take everything. You take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. You take it with a little bit of a understanding that this is more for like a general populace. That being said, Expedition 33 won so many awards, like the most number of awards ever on the Game Awards, like 9 or something like that. And a lot of people are probably tired of hearing about it or talking about it. But honestly, it deserves a lot of those accolades. It was such a good game. Smaller indie studio, reasonably priced game without any like special pre-sale DLC or anything like that to try to milk your money. Excellent soundtrack, great artistic design, impactful story, fun characters, awesome cinematic boss fights. It has everything. And something that we haven't really seen before too, being like a French studio, it has a lot of different influences on its art style and things they included. It was just such a unique experience, and I really enjoyed the game. It has to be pretty high. Oops. My mouse likes to drag in the wrong spots. Now, where does it go? I think it definitely goes in the S tier for me personally. I'm going to actually put it... I think I want to put it above Astrobot. Right here. And I'll explain why. Like, I loved Astrobot from last year. That was my game of the year last year. Expedition 33, I think, captures exactly what I want from, like, an RPG. Like, it's not a JRPG because it's not made by a Japanese studio, but, like, it captures a lot of things I like from JRPGs. We have the different party members, they have different like ways to use their skills and builds. What I really, really like is that the story it really makes you think. It leaves you with a thought and makes you really stop and ponder to yourself and go, what was the right decision? Is there a right decision? What would I do in this situation, right? That leaves a lasting impact on you. And the story was great, and I love the artistic direction, like I said, with the music, character designs, enemy designs. I love a game that has a cohesive art direction and theme all tied together. Like the whole theme of like grief, family, artistry, all that stuff comes together in every fiber of the game's being. Every decision they've made in crafting this game leads back to that theme, and it feels very cohesive because of that. On top of just having some really breathtaking sceneries and like music that just makes you stop and listen and ponder. It was such a good experience. And I think for me personally, it goes above Final Fantasy 16 because in Final Fantasy 16, you only have one playable character. And it was a great game, don't get me wrong, but I really love having multiple playable characters. And of course, the battle system was fun. Turn-based battles with a little bit of Persona 5 flair, but also the like dodge and parry mechanics from Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario, I think that made it really fun. Now, where it kind of falls a little bit, in my opinion, for Expedition 33 is that Act 3 of the game, I'll try not to spoil things, but I'll say, for Act 3 of the game, and you know, if you played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like the game lost a little bit of its direction there. The way it is played out, where suddenly you have a bit more free exploration, but the game doesn't do a really good job of telling you the, let's say, recommended levels of each of those places you can explore. So it's very easy. Like, it's fun to go wandering around and get lost, right? But at the same time, it's very easy to either enter an area where the enemies are way too strong for you to deal with, or you enter an area and the enemies are way too weak because you realize, oh, I should have gone here earlier. And the fun of this game for the battle system is when you're like on par with the enemy, the battles get really intense and they're really fun. So suddenly, if you're constantly encountering enemies that are too strong for you or too weak for you, it loses a bit of its balance. And the fact that, you know, you can decide when you decide to go to the finale of the game means that you could very easily be overpowered for the final boss or underpowered for the final boss, which again kind of diminishes, I feel, the impact of that last area. So that is one thing I did not like about Expedition 33, was mostly just the setup of Act 3. So I feel like the story was great and all that stuff, but for me, the story did not hit as hard as, like, you know, Great Ace Attorney or Ace Attorney Investigations 2 personally. So that's why it's behind those games. Hi Juan, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. Hey Ginger, it's good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Okay, so that's easy. Blueprints. Blueprints, personally, is my favorite game of the year. Even though I'm about to rank it lower than Clair Obscur, personally, I think Blueprints was my favorite. It tickles my brain in so many different ways. A matter of where it's going to go, I think I have to put it... I kind of want to put it somewhere around here. I'm just not sure if I want to put it before or after Octopath Traveler 2. I feel like I kind of want to put it just before it. Like in front of it. And I'll tell you why. So Blueprints is a puzzle game. And puzzle games, I think, come... Like, I love puzzles. But the problem with a puzzle game that's all about puzzles is it's very easy, because you want to make the puzzles hard but doable. It's very easy to make a puzzle game come to a point where it becomes too hard and it becomes frustrating, right? Especially for a streamer where, you know, you kind of want to be a bit efficient about it. Blueprints doesn't have that problem because of the way it's set up, because it combines the puzzles with a roguelike setup. And the roguelike setup means that, like, the puzzles themselves may not be that difficult, but you do need to rely a little bit on RNG. But it's not just like you're completely left up to the RNG gods. It's a matter of skewing the RNG to your favor by making very specific decisions. And that's what a good roguelike should do. It's RNG, but you have some control over that RNG as well. Those puzzles were so fun. They're like, I remember playing this game and then putting it down, and then I would still be thinking about it for hours on end, going like, okay, what if I do this strategy here? What's my next play here? Where am I gonna go here? There's just so much to explore in that game, and there's such a unique concept that I don't think I've ever seen before in a game. Like, I've seen similar things, of course, with like roguelikes and puzzle games, but the way they've combined them together like this, it's such a cozy, fun game. And Blueprints is my game of the year, even though I'm ranking it lower than Clair Obscur, because this is a combination of like personal taste, but also like how the streams went, and also how I think I would recommend these games to other people. It's not for everyone. Blueprints is not for everyone, but what it does is very special. Where it loses points is just because the story is more of just an overarching framework. It's not really, like, not to say there's no story, but after a certain point in the game, you kind of stop picking up on new story things, and the story is not really the primary interest anymore. And I really like a good story game, so that's why I think I have to put it behind all these other story games, like, you know, Great Ace Attorney and Umineko and Ghost Trick, Clair Obscur. I think I have to put it behind all those games, but I think I want to put it above Octopath 2 just because Octopath 2, I really enjoyed it. It was fun, but there were some shortcomings of that game. So I think Blueprints, I'm going to rightfully put it right here, up at the top. But my personal game of the year, Blueprints. So those are like the games I definitely know I want to put at the top of the tier list. There's also games I definitely know I want to put at the bottom of the tier list. So like as of right now, the lowest games on my tier list at rank C are like Rune Factory 5, which was a disappointment to me, and Raincoat. And I've said time and time again that I was a big Danganronpa fan. I was involved in the Danganronpa Tumblr community. I cosplayed Danganronpa. I did artwork, or fan art, not official art. I did fan art of Danganronpa. I did a little bit of casual RP. So I liked Danganronpa, and I was looking forward to, you know, other Kodaka works. Raincoat completely let me down. I'm not going to rant about it here. You guys know, I just didn't like any of the characters. Gameplay wasn't that fun. The story had so many plot holes that if you just stopped to think about it, everything fell apart. And you could do mental gymnastics and try to, you know, reason your way into the story, but at the end of the day, it was not good for me. I think that's a hard one to beat in terms of being one of my lowest. What comes close this year? No Sleep for Kaname Date. I like Zero Escape. I like Uchikoshi's works. The Somnium Files. There are things I didn't like about the Somnium Files, but I still enjoyed it. Like the Somnium Files, I put in a B+ tier, both games. There were things I enjoyed about it. There were things I really didn't like about it. The things I didn't like almost overpower some of the things I did like, but overall, like, I can see why people would like that series. This game is like a spin-off. It takes place between the Somnium Files 1 and 2. It's not written by Uchikoshi himself, but he did oversee some of it. The problem with this game is that all the characters, even though the characters, some of them I liked and some of them I didn't like, in this game, they're almost like reduced to caricatures of themselves. They take all the characters and distill them down to 1 or 2 personality traits and make that their entire personality. And I didn't really like that. I already was iffy on the Somnium gameplay of doing like Somniums. And then in this game, they were like, oh, we're going to do Somniums. We're also going to do escape rooms from Zero Escape. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. The escape rooms weren't really that fun. Somniums were the same as usual. The story wasn't good. I think at the end, it completely fell apart. The antagonist's motivation didn't really make sense. I mean, it made sense if you like did a bit of mental gymnastics, but there were a lot of things that were like quite illogical about it, and I feel like the conclusion was not what it did not come. The conclusion that came out of it was not what I would have wanted to see. It didn't feel natural enough to me. So it wasn't as bad as Raincoat, but No Sleep for Kaname Date was not that good. Didn't really enjoy it. There were a lot of moments where I really tried to enjoy it, and it just didn't reach that. It become welcome to the stream, and thanks for calling Kirby. So that being said, that one comes close, but not as bad as Rain Code, in my opinion. One thing that did give me a lot of frustration this year, and it wasn't even a long game, well, it wasn't even a long playthrough. Ninja Gaiden Sigma. And I'm sorry to say, Rain Code, your crown has been taken by Ninja Gaiden Sigma. So earlier this year, they announced Ninja Gaiden 4, and they also released Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. Ninja Gaiden's coming back. We should go play all the Ninja Gaiden games. I like Ryu Hayabusa in terms of design. Let's be honest, he doesn't have that much personality. He has a cool design. And you guys know I like Strider Hiryu. Ninja Gaiden 1 Sigma is a game from like the late 2000s. It's an old game. And even though we played the HD remaster of it, the gameplay essentially has not changed. Ninja Gaiden is supposed to be a difficult game. It's like Souls-like before Souls was a thing. Although there are tools to make it easier for people that just want to get through for the story. That being said, Ninja Gaiden 1 did not age well. Gameplay feels clunky. Camera keeps clipping into things when you least need it. The enemies are tough, but not in a way that I think may necessarily be fair, even on a low difficulty. And the worst part was the platforming. Like, you could sit back and say, well, Kiro, you're just bad at this game, therefore, get good all you want. But the problem with Ninja Gaiden 1 is that some of the traversal just doesn't feel good. If you want to do the wall running jumps, sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want, or you need to do it at a very specific angle to reach it. And if you don't do that, you're like stuck in the same spot for easily 10 minutes or more, just trying to jump up a wall. Some of the walls look traversable, but they're not. And sometimes you just want your character to jump up onto a small ledge, like a very short ledge, right? Should be easy for a master ninja. And instead he'll like jump, he'll kick off the wall and then do a backflip and then fall to his death. And you're like, but you're supposed to be a master ninja. The whole point of the game is you're supposed to feel like a badass, right? And that doesn't happen when your character just doesn't cooperate with you. So Ninja Gaiden 1 Sigma did not age well. I would not recommend playing that. I would not recommend that game to anyone that wants to experience Ninja Gaiden now. Unless you want to go back and see like how far it's come. It just doesn't feel good to play. It does come in like an HD collection with Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. So you'll probably end up, if you're interested in Ninja Gaiden, you'll probably end up getting it anyways. But I do not think this game is worth playing for someone who's interested in Ninja Gaiden personally. Just watch someone else play it. ACB, welcome to the stream. Merry Christmas. That being said, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, even though it's the second game in the series, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is not Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma. Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma is an old game. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black was released this year, so it was kind of like taking Ninja Gaiden 2, which is considered the best of the trio, and pulling it into a modern era. This was actually fun to play. They modernized it. The gameplay felt smooth. They made a good difficulty curve for people that want to play on low difficulty or high difficulty. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is actually worth playing. Where is it worth playing though? I'm not sure if I want to give it an A- rank. I feel like it's still kind of in the B+ range. I think I might put it... I would personally put it above Metaphor ReFantasio, because I personally was not a fan of Metaphor ReFantasio's story. But I don't think it belongs to be... I don't think it belongs in an A-. I don't think Ninja Gaiden 2 Black... It wasn't so great that I would recommend it to everyone, but it was fun. I'm going to put it here, above Metaphor ReFantasio. Personally, again, Metaphor was not my cup of tea for story. There were a lot of glaring things about it that I didn't like. I can comfortably put Ninja Gaiden 2 Black up here. And that's only Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, not Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma. If you play Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, which is the one that comes in the HD collection, it still feels old. So Ninja Gaiden 2 Black feels smooth. Story, though, like Ninja Gaiden games are not about the story. You do not play a Ninja Gaiden game for the story, so that doesn't even put it into contention. Hey Oreo, welcome to the stream, and hello Mumu, thanks for dropping by. Okay, moving on, Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge is also an old game. It is the third Ninja Gaiden game. It is still an old game from the early 2010s. It still feels like that. It's not horrible to play like Ninja Gaiden 1 Sigma was, but it's definitely not. You can feel it. It feels clunky. It feels not that good, but it's still playable. It has the potential to be the more interesting storyline between the first 3 games, but it is a very different feel. And at the end of the day, like Ryu Hayabusa still does not have much personality, and the story is nothing to write home about. I think I'm gonna put it in a B minus. It's still better than Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1, but I wouldn't recommend Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge of Stone. But if you wanted to play it, if you were interested, it is playable. It's not like you'll have a bad, awful time with it, but if you played the other games, or if you played Ninja Gaiden 2 Black or Ninja Gaiden 4, you'll immediately be like, yeah, this is old. This feels old. That being said, Ninja Gaiden 4 was really fun, actually. I know a lot of people didn't like it because Ryu wasn't the main character, and it really does do the Devil May Cry 4 thing, where it's like there's the new main character, and then you get to play as the old main character, but it's like very short segments and you're just retreading old ground. But honestly, like the boss fights were cinematic, the cutscenes were cool, story as usual, nothing to write home about. Visually, it looked cool, the set pieces were cool, the traversal was cool, it felt smooth to play. Even if you set it on a low difficulty, it still felt like the game gave you enough to give you a little bit of a struggle, but not make it frustrating, like it didn't feel like Souls-like at that point. Ninja Gaiden 4 was a pretty good game, actually. I would recommend it if anyone just wants to try some Ninja Gaiden and wants to play a Ninja Gaiden game. So it's definitely above Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I think I would put it, it actually felt pretty good to play. I think maybe here, this feels right. I think Ninja Gaiden 4 feels right here. Like cool action set pieces, cinematic, fun, but not really enough story there for you to eat up. But it was a good time, and it didn't overstay its welcome. I think I can comfortably say Ninja Gaiden 4 is an A minus right here, between Resonance of Fate and Blaze Blue 2 here. Yeah, I think that feels right. That feels right. Hey, Light, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. Okay, so those are some easy ones to rank. Some of my favorites and least favorites. Now, here come like all the middle games of the year. These will be a little harder to figure out where I want to rank them. Hades 2. I enjoyed Hades 2. And if you like Hades, Hades 2 is just more Hades. So if you like everything that happened in Hades, or like the gameplay of Hades, Hades 2 is just more. What marginally sets Hades 2 apart from Hades 1, though, is it just has more content. Like, straight up, it has at least double the content, which is good for a roguelike, because if you're doing a roguelike, you're fighting the same bosses over and over again, you're encountering the same NPCs over and over again. If you have double the content, it becomes a bit less stale. But at the end of the day, it's still a bit repetitive after a while. Or when you finish the game, or get the true ending and then the epilogue, and there's still so much to do that is all pure RNG. Like, there's a few character side quests that are almost completely just RNG that take a lot of runs to get through. You might start feeling tired by that point. Still, I feel like Hades and Hades 2, extremely fun, very well balanced games in terms of like the way they have the difficulty set. You can set your own difficulty. You can go for certain builds, and there's such a variety of different builds that you can do all sorts of nutty things that make the game really fun. Personally, I actually like the weapons in Hades 1 more than Hades 2, but Hades 2 does have some quirky weapons, which I just didn't get a good hang on some of the quirkier weapons. So I'm going to put Hades 2 above Hades 1. Also, I kind of like the characters in Hades 1 a little more than Hades 2, and the story of Hades 1 a little bit more than Hades 2, but just for the pure fact that Hades 2 has double the content, puts it slightly above Hades 1. So that's an easy rank for me. Okay. Tales of Symphonia. So this we actually did not play on my channel. We played on Kieran's channel, and we're not finished our playthrough yet. We're doing a collab playthrough where we play through like the Steam stream sharing function, the remote play function. I love this game. And one of the things is it is an older game, and one of the problems you might think is that with an older game, some older games don't age very well. And I think I can see people making the argument that Tales of Symphonia did not age as well, especially when you have other Tales games that have the free run, right? I think because Tales of Symphonia was one of the last Tales games that didn't have the free run. And then it was followed by like Legendia and then Abyss. So the free run not being there is a big hit on the battle system, but the dungeon puzzles are great. The story is fantastic still. I love the characters. There's so much to do in that game. There's replayability. And honestly, even without the free run, the battles are still fun. You just got to put in your mindset that you're playing an older game. Art style, cel-shaded graphics, it looks fine, in my opinion. This game has a special place in my heart. It is probably my second favorite game of all time after Tales of the Abyss. Even after playing it on stream, I know it's still such a good game. Now, I actually want to do a Tales of Symphonia playthrough on my own channel sometime this year. I don't know when I'm going to have time for it. JRPGs are long games, and if they keep releasing new games, I'm never going to have time to play games that are older that I want. Like I said, Tales of Symphonia is probably my second favorite game. I'm going to put it behind Final Fantasy XIV on this tier list, just because of the nature of Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO, right? There's so much content to do in that game. You can play it with your friends. You can do all sorts of different things. If you like doing like crafting and glamours, you can do that. If you like doing like raiding, you can do that. If you like doing, more casual things and playing card games or mini games with your friends, there's so much to do. So it's hard to compete with Final Fantasy XIV as a whole. So I'm going to have to put it behind that game. And also Final Fantasy XIV is always being updated. But if you want a great JRPG, Tales of Symphonia still holds up so well. Go play it if you haven't. Or go watch our playthrough or my future playthrough of it. It's such a good game. The story is still amazing. Aru, welcome to the stream. And Cole, hello, welcome in. Speaking of Tales, we played Tales of Xillia remastered this year. Tales of Xillia is probably my third favorite Tales game after Abyss and Symphonia. However, the gap between first and second place is very small. The gap between second and third place is quite large. Still, it's still a good game, and we finally got an HD remaster, which means that people can now play it on modern consoles, which makes it more accessible. I heard that the Steam release of it is not that good because of some technical issues, which is unfortunate, but I played the PS5 version and I had no problems whatsoever. It's still a great game. I would recommend it to someone if they want to play a modern day Tales game. I would recommend this to someone. Is it good enough to be in an S rank, though? I feel like Tales of Xillia 1 is probably going to be somewhere in an A+ rank. Maybe, is it before or after Spider-Man? I guess is the question. I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man game was so fun. I feel like if Tales of Symphonia 1 is going to be somewhere in the A+ range, we're eventually going to get Tales of Xillia 2. That's going to be an S, I feel. Actually, I guess technically Tales of Xillia 2 would be my third favorite Tales game. The only problem with Tales of Xillia 2 is you can't really play it without Tales of Xillia 1. I mean, you could, but like none of the story would make sense to you. But Tales of Xillia 2 is just better than Tales of Xillia 1 just for virtue of more playable characters and more content, right? That's what it bubbles down to. Tales of Xillia, I feel like, captures what Tales strives to be. I think it has like fun, memorable party members. The story is like pretty good. It's not like outstanding. Like I feel like Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss have outstanding stories. Tales of Xillia has a good story. Mostly, and also because Tales of Xillia actually has, I like the antagonists of Tales of Xillia. They remind me of the antagonists of Tales of the Abyss, because the way that those games are set up is that you have a group of antagonists, and each antagonist kind of has a special relationship with someone in your party to have a more personal connection. And not as many Tales games have done that since. Like, you see, even though we didn't do a full playthrough, Tales of Vesperia is on this tier list, although I think I might go back and do a full playthrough of Tales of Vesperia someday. We only streamed a couple times of it, because I was just starting off my streaming career, and I was just finishing a playthrough of Tales of Vesperia, so those were like test streams. Tales of Vesperia, the main party members are fun, although personally, they're not my favorite party, But I think the antagonists in that game were really weak, which is what brings Xillia higher than Vesperia as the antagonist. One of my big qualms with Xillia, though, is lack of post-game content. There is, like, yeah, you can play through the game again on, like, Mila's playthrough or Jude's playthrough if you did the other, but there isn't really as much fun post-game content to do. Like, Tales of Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss have a lot of post-game content, and these are old games. Tales of Xillia just did not reach that height. But I think I would recommend Tales of Xillia over Octopath 1. Personally, that feels right to me. And it still looks really good. A lot of people are saying that, like, it's an older game, so it doesn't look as good, but honestly, it looks fine to me. The environments still look really pretty. Oh, another good game this year, Dispatch. I had so much fun with Dispatch. Oh, where to go? Oh, here. I had so much fun with Dispatch. I don't know where I want to put it, though. I think it's probably my third favorite game of the year. Even though I might rank it lower than Tales of Xillia. I really enjoyed Dispatch. I think it feels right to put it here. Now, the thing with Dispatch is it has a lot of DNA that's similar to, like, Telltale, and I don't like using that comparison so much because it is its own thing. But I know a lot of people will make that comparison, and I think they're rightful to do so because, like, there's a lot of things they do that are straight up Telltale, you know, like so and so will remember this, right? And the structure of it. But if you go into this game not really knowing anything about it, and you're like, I don't really know what this game is like other than it's like a choose your own adventure type of thing, you go in and, you know, a lot of your decisions you feel might be impactful, and in the moment they do, and it's fun to look at statistics and stuff. But then when you finish the game, and then when you look back and you realize a lot of those decisions didn't really matter, it is, again, like very Telltale. In the moment, when you're playing it for the first time, it is very emotional. It is meaningful. It is impactful. And then you realize afterwards that actually a lot of it didn't really matter as much, or there are only like a few deviations that actually made a difference. That being said, the characters were extremely charming. The characters, the voice work, the personalities were just so fun in Dispatch. The found family, the feeling of these like misfits coming together and doing something cool. The battle scenes were really fun. And I actually really liked the Dispatch segments. I felt like it was like a puzzle game at that point. I felt like it was really working my brain trying to figure out the most optimal way to send out all my heroes in the right combinations and get all the right things. And to me, that's really fun gameplay. Like other games of its type, though, it does suffer from, I don't want to say lack of replayability, because yeah, you can go back and do the other decisions. But once you do that a few times, I feel like there aren't that many times where you're going to go back and replay this game. Unless you, like, you know, wait a couple years and then come back to it and play it again out of curiosity and then reliving it. So I feel like I don't want to put it in S tier, but it was a fun game. It was really fun. I recommend, if you haven't played Dispatch, go play Dispatch or go watch a playthrough of Dispatch. It was fun. See, a lot of these games that are in like the A+ and A tier are games I did enjoy, but maybe might lack a little bit more of the replayability from some of the games in the S tier. Not to say all the games in S tier are fully replayable. Some of these are very story-based games that just had a great story. Or they just had really complicated stories, and if you played them again a second time, like Umineko, you might catch things you didn't catch the first time. Yeah, Dispatch, I think, feels right to put there. Okay, the 100 line. Child of Kodaka and Jikoshi, Danganronpa and Zero Escape comes together. Again, I like Danganronpa. I like Zero Escape. Did not like Rain Code. The Somnium Files was okay. 100 line, I was not sold on, and then I played the demo, and when I leave the demo, I felt optimistic about this game. I was like, oh, this sounds like it has potential to be back to what I want from these types of games. And then I played it. And again, if you like this game, That's totally fine. I think fans of the 100 line are extremely adamant and outspoken about it, and that's fine. You can like the game, but it's okay. Just remember, it's okay for me to have an opinion about this game too, because I feel like every time I open my mouth and talk about this game, someone gets angry and leaves me a hateful comment telling me that I'm all wrong and cussing me out. It's okay to have different opinions on video games. It's okay. 100 line, it sounds ambitious on paper. We have this game. 100 different endings, 100 completely different story paths that are completely unique from each other. You can get over 200 hours of gameplay from this. It sounds ambitious on paper. At the end of the day, it really felt like quantity over quality. The characters were annoying. There are very few characters in that game that were not annoying. The few characters I found were okay were only okay by virtue of being less annoying than the others. It's okay to have quirky characters. I like quirky characters, but the way they're written in the 100 line is like almost every character has one or two jokes that they use over and over and over and over and over again. And by the time you get to 100 hours of this thing, and you're like, I've heard the same joke come out of the same character's mouth so many times, it's just not funny or charming anymore. And they don't do a good job of mixing that up. Not to mention, they advertise this game as being like 100 endings, 100 different story paths, completely different. Everyone's playthrough is going to be different. But for the first, 50, 60 hours of the game, everyone's playthrough is going to be exactly the same because there's no branching storylines for that first chunk of the game. And then you get to the second part and you get to the branches. And the branches, a lot of them just feel like fan fictions. I know I didn't do all the branches on my playthrough. I've watched other people do some of the other ones. Some of them feel like fan fictions where they're like, okay, let's just do a killing game storyline with these same characters. Let's do a romance plot with these characters. Let's do a comedy skit with these characters, and then go completely off the rails, something completely unrelated to the main story, and then end it for some reason at the end of whatever ending you get. It just felt like you took one story and then they just hired a bunch of fan fiction writers to make a bunch of spin-offs of it, which doesn't really make for a good game in my opinion. Some of the decisions you make don't feel... If you make the decision and then what happens logically afterwards feels like it doesn't logically follow from what you just chose. So you end up on these story paths that you didn't really... that seem a little arbitrary at times. The story itself had some intrigue to it, but I feel like every plot twist they tried to bring about, they over foreshadowed it. They foreshadowed something so much that you were like, okay, this is coming, and you're sitting there waiting for it to come, and then 20 hours later you finally get the payoff, and it's like for the characters it's some kind of big reveal, and you're like, well, I saw that coming 20 hours ago. I was just waiting for it to come. I don't think they did a good job with that. I will say though that the gameplay was fun. The battles in the 100 line were actually pretty fun the first time you do them. Problem is, after you get to a certain point in the game, all the battles just start repeating. So every battle you do after a certain point is just another battle you've already done before. And you're like, oh, this is just the exact same thing. So the battles are fun and novel, but then you get to a point where it's like, now it's all the same thing over and over again, to the point where the game gives you the option to skip the battles, which I think is telling about the gameplay setup for it. So it's an okay game, but it's not outstanding. It's not fantastic. It's just kind of mid. But it advertises itself as if it's more than that. And the whole thing about 100 different endings and 100 different completely different unique story paths is completely wrong, because a lot of the stories follow, there's 40, 50 different story quote unquote paths, but they all diverge at different points. Some of the paths are really short. Some of them, it's the one story path, and then at the end it diverges into 3 or 4 different endings, and those apparently count as completely different paths sometimes. And it's no, it's just the same. It's the same game, just with a slightly different ending. So I would not go and say this is a completely different path. So I appreciate that they tried to do something like this ambitious. It also doesn't help that on social media, they just keep trying to shill this game as if it's the best thing ever invented, and it's the most ambitious thing, the biggest thing that anyone has ever done, ever. And it's no. So 100 line, better than Raincode, better than No Sleep for Kaname Date. It's playable, so I think it at least has to go up into B. I don't think it deserves to be higher than a B. It might be a lower B+. I think I'm going to leave it in a B rank. I think it deserves to be a B. It doesn't deserve to be higher than a B. I know someone's going to point this out because if you haven't followed this channel, some of you, I know someone's going to point this out. Star Ocean 3 isn't a B rank, and I know that game is very beloved. I loved it growing up. I recently replayed it on stream in the last couple years. It did not age well, so if you're wondering why Star Ocean 3 is down that low, you go and try playing it in the modern age. You'll find out it controls really bad. Hey Ditsnall, welcome to the stream, and JP, welcome in. It's good to see you. Okay, moving on. Those are some of the easier ones I could rank this year. These are some. Now we're getting into ones that are kind of in the middle of the path. Actually, so these are kind of harder to rank. I'll pick a couple that are easier. Octopath Traveler 0. Octopath Traveler 0, we're still playing it. We're almost finished it. Not as good as Octopath 1 or 2, but still fun. But not as good. I think I'm going to put it in an A rank. And I'll tell you why. So Octopath 1 and 2 are great games because they follow the stories of these 8 travelers. They all have their own stories. The battles are epic. The music's great. The stories intertwine a bit at the end, more so in Octopath 2 than 1. Octopath Traveler 0 is like they took the gacha game, Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, and they made it into a single-player console game, which I appreciate because I don't like gacha games or mobile games. Therefore, they had to like kind of... It's the same story as Champions of the Continent, but they added a couple things to make an overarching narrative. Your main character is a silent protagonist that you make. A lot of the characters that join your party, they have a short quest to join your party, and then after that, they have no plot relevance. So, unlike Octopath 1 and 2, you have a bunch of people in your party that barely ever interact with anyone else, barely have any story relevance, and the story itself is fine, and the music's still good, and the battles are still fun, but because your party is just made up of a whole bunch of these, like, irrelevant NPCs, basically, well, I guess they're not NPCs, they're player characters, takes away from some of the magic of Octopath. Your character being a silent protagonist takes away from it, too. Some games can make the silent protagonist work, I just don't think Octopath Traveler 0 does, because it is, at the end of the day, it's a mobile game, gacha game, transformed into a console game. So it's not as good as Octopath 1 and 2, but it's still fun. It's just not as good as Octopath 1 and 2. Lust, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for following me and being a froggy friend. So like story driven, but less flavor text and party bonding. Well, not even that. It just feels like, you know, when you go into the story, all the main characters in the story are non-player characters, right? So it's like, and your character's silent, so you don't really directly interact with them. You just kind of like nod and say like yes or like ... or whatever. So it just feels like it takes away from some of the storytelling style of Octopath. Some games can make the silent protagonist work. Octopath Traveler 0 makes it work, but it does, I think it just diminishes what we find in Octopath 1 and 2. Not a bad game, just I would not say that should be your first Octopath game, but you can still very well play it. The town building aspect's kind of fun too, but it's no Animal Crossing. If you want town building, go play something that's actually town building, but like it's a fun diversion. What's the next one that's easy to rank here? Pokemon Legends ZA. You guys know I'm not a big Pokemon fan. I was growing up for a bit, kind of grew out of it. I don't really play mainline Pokemon games anymore because I find most Pokemon games, every time I try to go back into Pokemon, a mainline Pokemon game ends up being, it's just the same thing, rehashed a little bit. And I like it when they try to innovate and do something different. So Pokemon Legends ZA, like Pokemon Legends Arceus, they tried something new, and it's better than Arceus. They took a lot of things that worked in Arceus and brought it forward to ZA and made it better. The problem with Pokemon Legends ZA is that if it wasn't for the Pokemon thing, a lot of things in this game would not fly in other circumstances. So, for example, the boss fights against the Rogue Mega Evolution Pokemon, they're better than the boss fights in Pokemon Legends Arceus, for sure. In Arceus, the boss fights are probably the weakest part of that game. In this game, I think that the boss fights are better. But especially when you play the DLC, you realize that there's a lot of shortcomings with it. Like, you're running around dodging things, you're attacking, you know, par for the course for a boss fight. But in this game, you can't attack while you're dodging. You can't lock onto an enemy while dodging. When you're dodging, you often have to turn your camera away from the enemy. It's hard to look around. You can't open the pause or item menu all the time. Even when it's not on cooldown, sometimes you spam that item menu and it just doesn't open. There's a lot of shortcomings with the battle system. So it's, on one hand, it's like, oh yay, Pokemon, they're finally innovating and doing something different. We should give them plus points for it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, Pokemon's been at it for this many years. They finally started to innovate, and yes, they innovated, but also it's just a small step forward that still feels unrefined. It feels a little bit unpolished. So if this wasn't Pokemon, if this was like another franchise or if like a fresh IP and it had a battle system like this, you'd play it and you'd be like, wow, this feels kind of clunky and this doesn't really feel good. But because it's Pokemon, you're like, oh, they took one baby step forward. We should commend them for that. But like, their baby step forward on the grand scheme of things compared to other games is like very small. I think the saving grace of Pokemon Legends EA is the characters. The characters were fun. I think they did a good job with the characters. The characters are all really fun in that game, especially compared to a normal Pokemon game where a lot of the characters, you know, only appear very briefly and then you don't really see them more. A lot of the characters in ZA are recurring characters. So on one hand, good for a Pokemon game. If you like Pokemon, that'll be your cup of tea. But if you're not big on Pokemon, if you're casual about Pokemon, if you don't care about Pokemon, this game is quite mid, I think. But it does offer something new. I'm going to put it behind Ninja Gaiden 4. Actually, I'm going to put it behind BlazBlue Continuum Shift. Of course, being a Pokemon game means you have a lot of customization over your party, so that is fun. And they do give you some Pokemon quality of life stuff that's not in other Pokemon games, like the way you catch Pokemon is a bit better, picking up lost Pokeballs, retrying certain battles. But we saw recently, as we finished this game and the DLC, there are some fights that are just not fun to do. Especially with the DLC, especially because the DLC gives you a lot of timed content. You suddenly realize the traversal in the game's not that good. You can't jump. You could do this weird like Rotom glide thing, which is not fun to do, especially when you're on time limit. So, although this game is fun because of the characters, gameplay-wise, there's still a lot of shoring up it needs to do. But for a Pokemon game, I would like to see them continuing to try to innovate and make things better from here. Similar, Digimon Story Time Stranger. If you're a Digimon fan, this game is probably going to be great for you. It's probably going to be really fun, because it's been a while since we've gotten a good Digimon game. As just a JRPG, though, it's not really that good. Yes, the team building is probably the funnest part. Choosing your Digimon for your team, it's pretty fun. It's pretty grindy, to the point where you kind of almost have to buy the DLC grinding dungeon. And even with the grinding dungeon, early to mid-game, it's a pain in the butt. And it's not that fun. You're just standing there auto-attacking enemies. Almost like a mobile game. So the party building, I think the grinding takes away from it. The story has potential, but the pacing was just not there. There are some parts that are way too long and bloated and uninteresting. There's some short bursts of things that are interesting, but they don't last that long. The characters were not really that interesting either, especially the human characters. Very underutilized. They really tried. It felt like they were trying to push them in a certain direction, but they just weren't. None of the characters were really that memorable, really. The battles, I think, like for a JRPG and a turn-based battle system, you gotta make sure your battle system has something fun with it. And that just wasn't there. The whole battle system is basically just a rock, paper, scissors match. Just like, hit that thing with the weakness it has. Try not to get hit by your weakness, or guard against it. Nothing really that interesting. It really just feels like it feels like playing Shin Megami Tensei 5, but not as good. Because the battles in Shin Megami Tensei 5 were fun, but Digimon Time Stranger just didn't have that level of fun. And it was very easy to become too powerful from your grinding and then just become too powerful for the boss fights. So if you didn't grind, then suddenly the boss would be unfairly hard to the point where you basically couldn't do them. So balance issues and just a boring battle system. The fact that you can just auto battle everything in that game too. I know it's for quality of life, but it's like if you can make a game where every battle you can just auto battle, including bosses, do you really have something that special there? Not really. So I feel like it's almost like the opposite of Pokemon Legends ZA, where it's like, okay, we finally got a game from this franchise that was, if you're a fan of it, you would have really liked it. But the problem was the characters just did not pull through. And while Pokemon Legends ZA, the characters pulled through and the gameplay was actually still kind of fun, Digimon Time Stranger, the gameplay was not fun. Characters were boring. So I think it needs to go somewhere in the B+ range. It's still playable and it's still fun. If you're a Digimon fan, I could see why you might enjoy this still. After a while, it just felt like a bit of a slog. It's definitely better than Shin Megami Tensei 3, though. 3 did not age that well. I think I'm going to put it above Paper Mario 1. Yeah, that feels right to me. Because you can still have some fun building your team. I think that's the best part of that game. Okay, moving on. Trails in the Sky, first chapter. I actually really love the battle system in this game. It's really fun. Music was pretty good, but it is a remake of an old game, so I felt like the soundtrack was kind of short. Like, there weren't that many tracks. After you played for a while, the tracks were kind of the same after a while. Trails is a series where it's all about the story. However, it's a very slow burn story. Like, while we played Tales of Xillia, like, shortly after we played Trails in the Sky first, and you can tell, in Tales of Xillia, you spend 40 hours, give or take, and you explore the entirety of the world. You find out about so many different towns and a little bit about their cultures in the different towns. You meet so many characters. You save the world. Like, it's still a very big scope. And a lot of JRPGs are like that. But in Trails, it's like, you play this game, it's, let's say, 40 to 50 hours, and you're maybe at the 10-hour mark and you almost still haven't even left the starting town because it's such a slow burn. Like, there's the side quests and the main story are just such a slow burn. The characters have to say everything, which I guess you might argue makes it seem more realistic because there's like, but I think there's a balance between getting to the point while adding enough flavor text to make it not too rushed. And here they take the opposite approach and they make it too long. And I know that's the style of Trails, and if you're into that, that's great. But for me, personally, like, I love the battle system, but the story was just too much of a slow burn. And I like the party members, but outside of the playable characters, there weren't too many notable fun NPCs. Even the antagonists were kind of boring. And I know that changes with the games to come, because of course, this is the first game in a long series. Technically, it's like the first game in the trio of the trilogy of Trails in the Sky, which is also part of like the larger series, which is like 17 games long, and apparently if you want to get the full story, you need to play all the games to get all the details and all the references. But it's like, because of that, I can see why they really just made it a slow burn. I think my best way of describing it is like you know how they took Final Fantasy VII and then they are spreading it out into 3 different games, and sometimes when you're playing the game, you're like, okay, but like, this is fun, but it kind of feels like we're just touching the tip of the iceberg because the story's going so slow and there's like a lot of filler stuff in between. That's what Trails in the Sky feels like. Like, my best example of this, and I know it's early in the game, is early in the game when you're just about to leave the starting city, you do a side quest where you have to go help someone come up with a recipe to serve at their family restaurant, and that person takes you to a farm. And you spend like easily half an hour, especially if you're a streamer like me, where you listen to all the dialogue play out. like if you're just clicking through the dialogue, it's a lot shorter. But if you're me and you're like a lot of it's voice acted, they spend like 30 or 40 minutes just going through this farm talking about how like cows are important and the milk gets delivered to the town and that is important for the economy and it builds a relationship between the town and the farm and the chickens give their eggs. Like stuff that's like, okay, this is world building and stuff, I guess. But it's like, do I need to know about this? Is it important that I know about this? I think in my head, I know that cows give milk that could be delivered from the farm to the city, right? So it's like, it gives you a little bit of that like smaller scale, like homely kind of feel. But when you're doing a JRPG, sometimes you just kind of want to fight something and save the world. You know what I mean? I'm not saying every game needs to be like that. So obviously, it's the first remake of the series, and they're going to do more remakes. So it's just going to go up from here. But this game as itself, fun battle system, story is just such a slow burn. Oop, where'd it go? I kind of still feel like it goes in an A-, given what else is in the A- range. I think I could put it below Resonance of Fate. I think the other Sky games or the other Trails games as they come will only go up from here, but this one, it's an introduction, it's slow. At least Resonance of Fate is still like a full game. Like it's a full story from start to finish. Trails 1 is kind of just a opener or prologue. But I'll put it above Ninja Gaiden 4 because we do get multiple party members, and to me that makes it a lot more fun, and the boss fights are actually quite fun. Let's talk about, like, there's so many JRPGs here, it's hard to, let's do some of these easier ones actually. So Frog Detective 3 goes with the other Frog Detective games in the special category, where it's a game, on paper it's a game, it's more of like a children's book than anything else. You go in there, you talk to some townspeople, they tell you to talk to other townspeople. There's kind of a funny plot. It's charming, it's sweet. The comedy's not like high tier comedy, but it's cute, it's fun. I don't want to hate on it because it's like a small dev just making their dream come true, cute characters, but it's not really a game. It's more like a fun children's novel. So I think it deserves to go there. Party games. REPO. I actually like REPO more than Lethal Company, personally. It's basically, REPO's basically Lethal Company, but I feel like it's a bit better because if you die, you can come back easier. You can still like save people in the middle of a run. There's more objectives. I feel like there's more variety of enemies if you don't play modded. The funny like player characters look like trash cans and they're animated really fun. So I actually like REPO a bit more than Lethal Company, but in essence, they're kind of the same thing. Peak. Now, I don't have any Peak VODs on my channel, but we played this on a few other people's channels, and I see the appeal of it. It's a climbing game. It's not a rage climbing game. Like, it's not like getting over it, where you're supposed to be raging and having a hard time. It's not like Chained Together, right? More casual. Mountains change every week or so. There's like a weight system and an item system where you can share with other people to like spread the weight out, make it easier. You can help people up. There's some mechanics in some areas that are kind of difficult, but once you figure it out, it's a bit easier. I think the problem with Peak is, at the end of the day, it is just climbing. So you play it a couple times, and personally, I feel that you play it a couple times, and then you get kind of bored of it, because it's one thing, it's climbing. And once you die, you just kind of float around, wait for your friends to either also die or reach the point. If you play with a group of people that all kind of stay together in a group and help each other up, like one of my collabs, we did that. It was fun because it just felt like a chatting stream. We were just doing a chatting stream and, you know, walking up the mountain as we do so. But I've also had collabs in Peak where some people run far ahead and then everyone else runs ahead and then everyone gets scattered and spread out, and then there's like proximity chat, so you can kind of hear people, but at that point you're all just kind of playing this, it's almost like you're all playing separate games in the same area. So I think if you spread out too much, it just doesn't become as fun anymore. But if you stay together, it just feels like a chatting stream, but also it's a bit more laid back. So I don't think Peak is a great game for everyone. I'll say it's probably better than Chain Together, because Chain Together is supposed to be a rage-inducing game. I'm gonna put it behind Cal X, because at least Cal X had a goal behind it, and the levels were short. So Peak, I think, not one of my favorites, personally. SEDAP was a fun game. It's kind of like Overcooked, but with like Southeast Asian cuisine, and our friend Onerio worked on it as well, and we played it with him on stream. It was fun. I would say it's kind of like Overcooked. I would actually say it's better than Overcooked as well, but I think the main drawback of it is it's only 2-player. So like with Overcooked, you could have like 4 people, while here you can only have 2 people. So while it is fun, and also there's like a slight combat mechanic, you have to like, beat up the monsters to get their meat, or go harvest the plants and bring them back. But at the end of the day, it is only 2-player. But they are also constantly like updating this game, making it better. So I do want to see where they go from there. Try to see where I put some of the other games. Oh yeah, so Monster Roadtrip is the 3rd game in Monster Prom series. So we played Monster Prom 1 and 2, which are up here. And I put Monster Prom 1 above Monster Prom 2 just because I like the characters that you can interact with in Monster Prom 1 more than Monster Camp. Monster Roadtrip, I think, is pretty fun because it changes up the thing. Like, dating is not the main objective in Monster Roadtrip. The road trip is the main objective. Dating is kind of like a secondary thing that you can do. The dating is actually kind of harder in that game if you're playing with other people, because then you have to fight over like the hitchhikers that you get, and you can only have like one hitchhiker at a time. But if you're just going for a game that you can play with friends, Monster Roadtrip, I think it's better than the other ones if you're not interested in like romance. And plus, when we played Monster Prom and Monster Camp, we didn't, at least me and the friends I played with, we weren't really fighting over each other for the romantic interests. So we didn't really, it's kind of fun, I know, when the game you start sabotaging each other and stuff, and we didn't really do that. And the reason why these games are listed here, not in the party section, is because you can just play it by yourself too. So I'm going to put Monster Roadtrip above Monster Prom 1 and 2. It's charming, it's fun. I think I'm going to put it here, just below Pokemon Legends ZA and just above Super Mario RPG. Let's see, where should we go next? Silent Hill F was pretty fun. I like Silent Hill F more than I like Silent Hill 2 Remake. I feel like some of the mechanics are the same, but I feel like Silent Hill F does a slightly better job with some of them, like the dodging and the movement. I feel like Silent Hill F was also like Silent Hill 2, I felt like some dungeons were just too long. Like the hospital, for example, you spent so much time in there that it got kind of boring at times. While Silent Hill F, I feel like you move from location to location a bit better. I think one of the downsides of Silent Hill F is that if you want to get the full story, you really do have to do multiple playthroughs of the game, and I only did one playthrough, and I've gone and watched other people's endings for the other ones, and I do appreciate that. I might go back and get the other endings, but like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, yeah, games were, meant to be played multiple times to get different endings and stuff like that too. But the way that they did it here, I just felt a little cheated, because most Silent Hill games, you can get different endings at least on your first run. But on your first run of Silent Hill F, you basically always get the same ending. So gameplay-wise, I think it's better than Silent Hill 2 Remake, but story-wise, like, I do like the story and the characters and the way they're introduced, but the fact that you don't get multiple endings that easily, I think I'm just going to put it just above Silent Hill 2. Because other than that, it's very similar. I also like the aesthetics of Silent Hill F. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Fighting game. Fun. Nice to see City of the Wolves or Fatal Fury come back. A lot of characters I do like from that series. like Rock Howard, for example, or Hokutomaru. I think this game, like, it has a good style to it too, which is what you need to set yourself apart when it comes to a different fighting game. I think the hard part about this game is that the roster's kind of small. And yes, they've added new DLC characters, but I just feel like there isn't as much variety in the cast as if I was playing. I mean, obviously Tekken has a huge cast, and Street Fighter's getting there too. But because I feel like the Fatal Fury characters aren't as memorable as a whole. But I feel like the gameplay was fun. I feel like this is a good like start if you want to get into fighting games as a novice and you don't want anything too complicated. So Tekken 8 I put in A rank. I think this is below Tekken 8. Still fun, but it's just I think I'm gonna put it behind. I'm gonna put it just above Silent Hill F. Because I think it's definitely better than Eiyuden. And it's still fun. I like that they added some kind of RPG mode with the city exploration stuff, but it just wasn't as fleshed out. That being said, Street Fighter 6. I thought I would get more into fighting games, like playing fighting games well with Street Fighter 6, because I like fighting games, but I've never sat down and like really worked at becoming good at one because it takes a lot of time. And Street Fighter 6 I thought would give me that, but it felt a little clunky to play. I always felt like Street Fighter felt a bit more clunky than Tekken because of the nature of what it is, because it's a two-dimensional fighter, although now they're using like 3D graphics. World Tour mode was fun. I like that, although there are some limitations to that mode. They're adding a lot of new characters to this all the time. The competitive scene is fun. I think, personally, I like Tekken a bit more than Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 is a classic. A lot of people are getting into it. I think I'm going to put it on an upper A-. In fact, I think I'll put it at the beginning of the A- tier. Because there are some things that are kind of like, especially if you're just casual and you're playing World Tour like me, there are some fights that seem a little bit unfair. And I know that you can use items and stuff like that too, and the customization is a little bit limited in some places, even though the customization feels like there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. I think I'll keep it at the beginning of an A- rank. I don't think it deserves to go up into A for me personally, but I can see why someone would enjoy it up there. But it does have its limitations. And I do want to go back and keep playing this and do more of the DLC characters, I just haven't had time. Same with Fatal Fury. Those are fighting games out of the way. Oh, no, there's one more. Umineko Golden Fantasia. This is a tag team 2D anime fighter. The fighting game community as itself is already a small community. But then you take the people that like the anime fighting games, the two-dimensional ones, and it's even smaller subsect of the community. You take the people from that community that like Umineko, and it's an even smaller subsect. That being said, this is a really good fighting game. I think the mechanics are really fun and really make you think. Even as a non-fighting game player as me, there's like five or six different meters you have to keep track of. The different combinations of characters open up completely different combos. It is very like Marvel vs. Capcom, but even more complicated, if you can imagine. If you played Marvel vs. Capcom, you know it's already complicated enough, even though it appears deceptively simple at the beginning. Umineko Golden Fantasia takes that even more. The animations look good. The music is great because it's just Umineko music. There is kind of like a story mode, arcade mode, but it's very like light. I will say though that a lot of even though the characters are fun to play as in this game, and they all have like very unique movesets and styles, allowing for so many combinations of tag team styles, but a lot of the things the characters do are very specific to the visual novel. So like the attacks will be like, this doesn't make any sense. To someone who has not played the visual novel, they'll be like, what is going on? What is happening here? Why is this person doing this move? That doesn't make any sense. But then if you've read the visual novels, it's such a treat to see a lot of these in action, because the visual novel is just text. So you have to imagine a lot of the attacks yourself. So to see it happening here is a real treat. This is a hidden gem of a fighting game. Even if you don't like Umineko, I think it's a very tactical fighting game too. I think it deserves a higher rank, but it is definitely not for everyone. I'm gonna put it. I want to put it somewhere between Blaze Blue, Continuum Shift, and Fatal Fury. Actually, I might even put it above. See, the thing is with Blaze Blue, the characters are very charming, but it's a very technical fighting game. But the fact that this game is a tag fighter, I think a tag fighter opens up so many more possibilities than just a regular fighting game. Plus, we're also going to be eventually playing Blaze Blue Chrono Phantasma and Central Fiction, and those games will definitely be higher ranked than Continuum Shift. So I think for now, I'm going to put Umineko here. It was pretty fun, even if I was the only person enjoying it. Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. My favorite Fire Emblem games are the GBA GameCube era. I love Path of Radiance. Love Sacred Stones. Blazing Blade is fun, and it was good to revisit it, but I definitely felt its age. It definitely did not feel as balanced as even Sacred Stones was. And although the characters are fun, but the map design, the balancing, the pacing of the story, it was clear that they were just kind of still figuring out what to do at that point. You know, it was their first couple GBA games. It was their first official English release. They were still trying to figure out what to do. There's a lot of charm in it, but it's definitely the worst of between Blazing Blade, Sacred Stones, and Path of Radiance. It is the worst of the three, which makes sense because it's also the oldest of the three. We've not played Sword of Seals yet on stream, and I do want to play that one eventually, but that one's not officially in English. That one's definitely going to be rougher than Blazing Blade. So Blazing Blade, good, but if you want to play a retro Fire Emblem game, I would recommend, and you don't want to like, you know, see the series progress, I would say start with Sacred Stones, actually. I think I'm going to put it... I'm going to put it behind Digimon Time Stranger, only because Time Stranger has a lot of stuff to do, and it actually does have pretty cool like attacks and graphics and stuff, although I do love the GBA, the charm of the GBA sprites in Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. When we eventually play Sacred Stones is definitely going to be higher than that. So like a lot of these games, of course, we've only played the first in the series, and I'm still waiting to find time for more. Like we played 999, and I'm still waiting to find time to play Virtue's Last Reward on stream. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it, because I know that one's going to be ranked higher than that. Same with Sacred Stones for Fire Emblem is going to be ranked higher than this, or the next two Blaze Blue games will be ranked higher than Continuum Shift. So a lot of times we're just starting off with the first in a series, so by nature they're going to be a little lower than we expect. Pit People was actually really fun. We played it with Forte. It's made by the Behemoth, the same people behind Castle Crashers, and it's kind of like the closest thing I'll ever find, I think, to co-op Fire Emblem, and that actually made it really fun, actually. I think it was more fun than Eiyuden. Maybe even more fun than Silent Hill, honestly. But there's a lot of content in the game if you do all the side quests and stuff. There is a lot of the stuff in the game that I don't think does a good job of explaining its own mechanics. I think Pit People was still pretty fun, though. I would recommend it, especially if you can play it with someone else. But it is a little messier to play than... I feel like the menus were hard to navigate. Like when we started out, Forte joined my room, but then he had the problem of like his save file was stuck on a different difficulty than mine and had permadeath on it, so he had to like redo his save file. So there's a couple things that kind of work funny in that game, but it's still quite fun, I think. Hey Fate, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. Castle Crashers was also made by the Behemoth. It's an older game. We played it with Lightos on the channel. Surprisingly, after we played it, like that game had not received updates for years, and then after we played it, like a month or two later, they released an update where you could like use the painter to make your own characters and stuff. We haven't gone back to revisit it. It might be fun to do that. We did beat the game though. I think it's pretty fun. Classic 4-person beat 'em up co-op. if you want a group of people to play things with. I think Pit People was actually a bit more fun than Castle Crashers though, but Castle Crashers was pretty fun. I'm actually going to put it above... It's an older game, but it still holds up pretty well. I'm going to put it above Eiyuden. I'm not sure if it's above Silent Hill. Silent Hill does something special with its horror. Castle Crashers was fun though. I think I can leave it here. So we played a lot of ninja games this year with all the Ninja Gaiden games. We also played Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and I really like this game. The combat's fun, the music's great, the action sequences, the cutscenes are cool. My problem with this game is twofold. It's the game's too short. And I know that a lot of these action games are meant to be, you play them once, short campaign, and then you just do like the challenge trials or whatever. But for me, I like the story stuff, and the story was interesting and fun, and the cutscenes were fun in this game, but it was quite short. On top of that, the codec conversations are fun, and they do world building, but they front load them so much. The first couple missions in the game have so many codec conversations that you spend a lot of the game just sitting there listening to people talk. And the game doesn't do a good job of telling you when there's new codec conversations, so you're constantly checking it after every like 2 steps you take. You'll take 2 steps in the story, and suddenly there'll be like 10 new conversations that you have to listen to. And you might not know until they start repeating dialogue that you've already heard a conversation as well. It's just too much sometimes. I feel like I know they want the world building, but the codec conversations, and I know you can just skip them, but I feel like they could have spread them out better and maybe cut down on some of them to make them a bit more succinct. The game itself, though, still holds up. The gameplay is still fun. More fun than Ninja Gaiden 2. Black. I think I'm going to put it here. Castle Crashers was more fun because you could play it co-op. Eiyuden was a mid-tier JRPG that had some fun stuff. So I'm going to put it here. It's definitely above Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and it's above some of these older games here. Oh, another one I want to point out, because I know someone's going to bring this up too, is Alice Madness Returns. I love this game. The only reason why it's in a lower A rank, or A or minus rank, is because the Steam version of the game, which is the most accessible version of the game, does have some technical problems with it. That was one of the main reasons. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Final Fantasy Tactics. This game is beloved by a lot of people, and I can see why. For me, even though we're still playing this game, so my opinion might change. I do know the story of the game, and I think I played enough of it to make a judgment about it. The gameplay is fun. The class building is fun. I don't think the game does a good job of tutorializing you on what to do, though. There's some things the game really doesn't tell you, and then you have to go digging through the help files, which is not fun. The story, I think, it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's like super duper outstanding, but it is interesting. I think what really brings the story about is the diction. What I mean by that is the choice of words, the way they write it. So it kind of feels a little bit like Old English, but it's not quite Old English. It's not really Shakespearean, but they speak in kind of a flowery way that it's still easy to understand, but is not a way someone would talk now. It almost feels like a stage play, which I think is kind of fun. I like tactical games, but I think my problem with this game is you mostly just play with generic units. And even when you get named playable characters, there aren't that many of them that join your group, and they join you like later in the game. I like a tactical game like Fire Emblem or Unicorn Overlord, where a lot of your units have names and personalities. You can see them interact with each other. You don't really get that in this game. Plus, you can only deploy 4 people at a time, which one of them has to be Ramza. Sometimes you get a 5th guest character, and then the guest character's AI usually messes you up anyways. There's some grinding involved, which is, I don't really like grinding, especially when you have to grind so early in the game. Like, we're still in chapter 1, you have to start doing grinding. So, it's a good game, but definitely has a lot of things that just maybe weren't meant for me. So, me personally, it's going to be below Fire Emblem Blazing Blade. This might change when we come back to this tier list next year. Shin Megami Tensei 3 was also a little grindy, so I feel like I'll put it above that game. Also, the camera is kind of awful in this game. I think I'll put it above Penny Blood. Yeah, I'll put it above Penny Blood. The grinding just wasn't really for me. I know it has its payoffs. And yeah, the camera was pretty bad. For a remake, I was expecting the camera to be better. I know there's like you can get an aerial camera view, but then you have to hold a button down. And when you're trying to move things on a field, it just doesn't make sense to have buildings and trees constantly blocking the way you're seeing. Lost Soul aside, this game has been in development for such a long time. And I know a lot of people were disappointed with it when it came out because it had been in development so long that people were like, well, it better be worth it. And they didn't think it was worth it. I think this game is perfectly fine, especially if you consider it was started by one guy and then slowly developed into a smaller studio and then a slightly bigger studio. Props to him making his dream come true. The game looks beautiful. The battles look flashy. The boss cutscenes and the finishing boss cutscenes look cool. It's very cinematic. Really cool set pieces and traversal. Set pieces and traversal that you didn't even really necessarily need. A lot of the things they do is just for rule of cool. Very much feels to me like Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden, like those types of action games. If you went into this expecting like a RPG, like a good story, you're not going to get that. But honestly, the story is no better or worse than a Ninja Gaiden game or a Devil May Cry game. Although with the Devil May Cry game, I find the characters are charming, while this game, the characters had very little personality, which, same with Ninja Gaiden. So there were a couple areas that felt a little bit unfair, or maybe some dialogue that repeats itself a little bit too much, but overall, it was still a fun game. And I think better than a lot of people thought. I think a lot of people just want to hate on it because it had been taking such a long time to make. I'm going to put it here. Maybe even better than Ninja Gaiden 2, actually, because it had a little bit more... But I think it's not better than Fire Emblem. I think I'm going to put it here. I think I can comfortably put it here. For now. I'm looking at my A- games, and I'm thinking some of them might need to be, like, demoted down to a B+. We'll see. But this game was not bad. It was just kind of mid, but it looked flashy. But it also got a lot of hate from people that I don't think it deserved. Shadow Hearts. So this summer, I had a little bit of a break between new releases. I was able to go back and play some old games, and I like playing old games. I like playing PS2 JRPGs. Shadow Hearts is among some of my favorites. Khemia as well. I could tell that when I was playing these games that no one really cared about these games other than me. I could tell that people were losing interest in watching me play these games, but I like them. It's just unfortunate that, they are older games and they're a bit more niche. That being said, so Shadow Hearts 1, I think, is an old game. I like the music still. The story has some interesting things. The battles still hold up. Graphics do not really hold up in this game. As an old JRPG, it also has some shortcomings in that it does have some very unforgiving, missable stuff. You go into this one dungeon for this one limited short span of time, you miss one item that's hidden in that dungeon, suddenly you get yourself out of a side quest that happens 10 hours later that gives you one of the best items in the game. So it is a bit unforgiving, which is meant for you to be able to replay it. It is still very playable. It's just old. It's just an old game. So I don't feel comfortable giving it higher than a B. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I think I'll put it above Star Ocean 3 though, because Star Ocean 3 just feels bad to play in a modern age. Shadow Hearts 2 though is a completely different story. I think Shadow Hearts 2 still holds up really well. The characters are charming and funny. The story is interesting. The music's great. The dungeon design's great. The puzzles in the dungeon are great. I can see why people would still not like it though, and it is not easily accessible. So personally, I love Shadow Hearts 2, but I know it's no longer deserving of a higher rank as it used to be. I think I want to put it above Shin Megami Tensei, just because it is still, like I listed before, Good story, fun characters, fun gameplay, but it is an old game. Khemia is also an older game. Pixel style keeps it relevant looking, so you don't have to worry about like looking bad because the pixel style is kind of timeless. The pixels still look good. Story is actually, it's not like super amazing, but I feel like it was fun and the characters were really fun. The crafting is fun. Gameplay is fun. The music is outstanding. If you don't know about Khemia, it is part of the Atelier series as well, but this is back when Atelier was going for more battle-oriented games instead of the slice-of-life types of games. I still really like this game. I can't wait to play Khemia 2 on stream, which I'm going to try to do this year sometime. I think it's better than Shadow Hearts 2. I think it might even be better than a lot of these, actually. I think I can comfortably put it here. The problem with Unicorn Overlord is that the game towards the end, they kind of ran out of budget, so they're like, the ending of the game felt a little rushed, while Khemia is a full experience. But it is still an older game. It's not as accessible, but I do like the characters, I do like the music, I do like the story. I might even want to put it higher, but I know Khemia 2 is going to take a higher spot. Actually, you know what? I want to put it higher than Tales of Vesperia. Yeah, that feels right to me. Okami, another older game with the remaster that we played because Okami 2 is set to come out sometime. Overall, still a fun game. I think, you know, honestly, very stylistic, charming. The problem with this game is like the paintbrush techniques are fun, but it is a little finicky sometimes. Not as finicky as when I played it on the Wii back in the day, but there are definitely times where I was trying to like draw things and just wouldn't detect it, even though I was trying to do all the motions perfectly the way they wanted me to do. I also feel like this is the game this year that had the most number of people coming in to try to backseat me on. I know it's a beloved game, but I just had so many people coming in trying to tell me what to do in this game, and that was really annoying. It's still a timeless classic, though. I think I want to put it... It is also... It's still kind of old-ish, though. I think I'm going to put it here. Behind Trails. But after Ninja Gaiden. It's a fun game. I do recommend it. If you haven't played Okami, it is another example of, I think, like, video games as art, right? Just like Expedition 33 is, just like Blueprints is in a way. It's an experience. And the music's great. I love listening to the soundtrack. No, I'm Not a Human. Very interesting horror game. Has a little bit of like the Papers, Please, or like other games like that where you have to like make decisions with limited information, or like with like some kind of timer or something like that going on. Honestly, this game surprised me. It has a weird art style which adds to it. I did not think I would have as much fun with this game as I did on stream, because when you go through a game like this, the game becomes less scary or anxiety inducing when you know all the mechanics of the game. But when I was going through it, I was going in like only partially blind to the game, so a lot of the mechanics I didn't know the exact ins and outs, and that adds to the scares, that adds to the tense story of it. Once you go through it a couple times, or you try going for other endings, it starts to lose some of that. But I think it is pretty fun. I'm gonna put it with all these other horror games here. I don't think it's as good. Soma has such a good story, but at the end of the day, Soma is just a walking simulator. I'm gonna put it here. Like at the end of the day, Soma is still just, you know, you walk around and you avoid enemies. So, but this does do something special too. But I love the story of Soma. Hey J Ray, welcome to the stream, and hello Angora, welcome in. Okay, only a few games left. Split Fiction, we only just started. We're not finished yet, but from what I gather so far from the game, it's really fun. You play with someone else, there's like cool, gigantic set pieces, which make it really interesting. Oops, where'd it go? Oh. I can see why a lot of people really loved it and why it's a great experience. I think I don't want to put it in A rank just because I feel like, the story's there, but it's not really like a super interesting story, but the environments you go through are really cool. Like it does give the same vibe as like Ninja Gaiden 4 was in terms of like how cool the set pieces look, or Lost Soul aside. I think I gotta put above Ninja Gaiden 4 just because playing with someone else is more fun. I look forward to going back and playing more of it. TikTok, A Tale for Two. This was a fun game to play. We played it with Alex on stream. It's quite short. The nice thing about the game is that you don't need to be like hosting a room or like an internet connection. You just need to be ideally like on call with the person in some way, which I guess would also require the internet. Short game, little puzzles here and there, but it's an experience. I feel like this one kind of goes in the special tier because it's not really a traditional, well, it's a game, but it doesn't feel right to compare it to other games of similar nature. I kind of want to put above Sonic, The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, because that was just a visual novel with some difficult platforming, but this was something kind of special on its own. Unpacking. I played this game and it was not what I was expecting, and I actually had more thoughts about this game after we finished it. So the game is like you're moving out of a place. So you're moving into a place. So they give you like they give you like the box of stuff and you have to unpack it and then find out how to put it. And at first I thought it was just going to be like a fun, like, oh, cozy game. You take it, you unpack it, you put it down in the room, done. But it's actually kind of a puzzle game because it only lets you put certain items in certain places. And as you go through the levels, like I didn't really realize until late in the game, it was actually telling a story. So again, it kind of goes back to that thing of like video games as art. It actually tells a story. It's not about just being cozy and you sitting there and unpacking things and, chilling. There's actually a story to be had, but it's an untold story. You have to piece it together using environmental clues and items. And I think that's really interesting. So I think this one also goes in the special tier. Actually, I kind of want to put it above PT because, like, I mean, PT was fun, but it is, not accessible anymore. And also, to get the true ending of it, it does require a couple gimmicks and stuff like that too. But Unpacking has an interesting place to be said here. Now, personally, I felt when I went into the stream today, I was thinking about getting rid of the special and the party tier and just moving these things into other tiers. But the more I think about it, the more it doesn't feel right. Because again, the special tier is stuff that these are technically games, but they're games with a different type of purpose. And then the party tier is like games you have to play with other people. And by virtue of playing with other people, it completely changes the way it is. And I know Split Fiction, technically, I could put it in party. I feel like if a game only has 2 people, though, it's not as much of a party, per se. So I feel like Split Fiction, I'm still okay with putting up here, but these games definitely, I feel, very dependent on who you play with. Am I still ranking Expedition 33? That was like the first one I ranked today. So if you want to go back and look at the VOD, because I talk about it for a long time, I'm not going to say it all again, but we did rank Expedition 33. So here is our completed tier list now with all our 2025 stream games added to it and all the other games on the channel. Again, your opinion might be different than mine. It probably will be. We all have different opinions on video games, and that's fine. What were your favorite playthroughs of this year on the channel, or games that you enjoyed? Let me know in the comments below when this gets posted on YouTube. But 2025 was a really good game for video games. There were so many new releases, especially between September and November. I was so busy with just new releases. 2024 was busy for new releases around like February to April. I think we were really, really packed, but 2025 was like the end was quite packed. There were just so many good releases, especially if I go back and look at a lot of the games that won a lot of awards or were nominated for a lot of awards. I played the majority of them. Usually when it comes to game awards and stuff like that too, I only play like a small fraction of the ones that get all the awards because my tastes are a little bit more niche. But this time, like a lot of things I liked really ended up getting nominated for a lot of things. And I like that because a lot of them really deserve it, especially. I'm going to save this image here and we will put it up on Twitter and Blue Sky as well so people can have a look and give your opinion there. And this video, again, will go up on YouTube later this month before the end of the year. That was a lot of talking. I can feel it in my voice. I will probably squeeze in another Octopath 0 stream between now and the 26th. If you're watching this on YouTube, it would already be uploaded. But again, I'm going on vacation from the 26th to January 4th, so between now and then, there's still going to be some YouTube videos trickling in, but there's not going to be any streams during that 10-day period. Even when I get back, there might be a couple days of break from streams, and then we'll get back into it. I'll also do my 2025 wrap-up or summary video, which I do every year. I haven't done it yet. It'll be up in January, where we just talk about what happened, all the milestones we did over the year of 2025, as we move on to 2026. 2026, right now, there aren't that many games coming out that I think I'm interested in that they've announced, but who knows, they might pop up with stuff unexpectedly. You never know. I would like to spend a lot of 2026 going through either like finishing up the tail end of some of these games that we played. Like some of these games we finished this year, but there's still like some bonus post-game stuff we haven't touched yet. Like, for example, Mila's story in Tales of Xillia, or Hector's story in Fire Emblem Blazing Blade, or the super boss of Expedition 33, or finishing Octopath 0 and Final Fantasy Tactics. So we have a lot more loose ends this year compared to before, because we just had to move from game to game so much more. Oh yeah, we also have like DLC for Fatal Fury and Street Fighter that we haven't gone through, and Tekken. So a lot more stuff yet to come. But I'm hoping I could spend more of 2026 going back and again doing old games like PS2 games, or continuing series we've started when didn't continue because of time. So for example, the last two Blaze Blue games, finishing up the Zero Escape trilogy, etc. So look forward to that. But thank you so much for joining me here on stream. I know, again, there's a weird time to stream, Christmas Eve afternoon. Everyone's busy, so I appreciate people that stop by, or if you're watching this in post, and I will see you next time. So thank you so much, guys, and I'm just going to end the video here. We're not going to raid out anyone, just because this is a kind of a different type of video. So see you guys later. Bye, Froggy friends.